Hey guys, I'm Adrian, also known as Reckoning on the channel, here to give you a deck tech video. Today, we'll be going over the new commander that was released with Commander 2020, Tayam Luminous Enigma. But before we get into the deck, I just want to say that our deck techs may not be the right direction to go. Please keep in mind that when we build the decks, we build them to suit our own playstyle and how the meta of our play group is. Please, you do not have to copy the deck card for card. You can add your own cards, make it your own, personalize it. But if you do copy the deck card for card, please send us stories. Tell us how the deck goes. So now on to the deck tech. Tayam Luminous Enigma is a 1 generic, white, black, green, 3/3 legendary creature nightmare beast. His card reads as: each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it. Pay 3, remove 3 counters from among creatures you control. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. A vigilance counter is a new keyword mechanic, or just keyword counter, I guess, from the UI core and commander set. A vigilance counter, it pretty much just means that your creatures enter the battlefield with vigilance. Now, the commander is pretty wordy, so to shorten it, your creatures enter the battlefield with a counter that gives them vigilance. You can pay 3, remove 3 of whatever kinds of counters from among creatures you control to mill yourself for 3 and return a permanent CMC 3 or less to the battlefield. So, you pretty much Sun Titan. Now, that's a wonderful ability that Tayam has. Tayam does a lot of Abzan things itself. It has graveyard recursion, it has the mill, and it even provides counters. What's great about it is that you can also recur any permanent CMC 3 or less at instant speed, assuming that you have the resources necessary and you have enough counters on creatures among you control. The creatures on this deck all have something to do with counters. Creatures like Juralf's Messenger, Renclaw, and Kitchen Finks. Creatures like this are especially great for the deck due to their undying or persist ability. When they die, depending on if they have persist or undying, if they don't have a +1/+1 counter or -1/-1 counter, they will enter the battlefield again from your graveyard, and due to Tayam's ability, they'll enter with another counter, which will be a vigilance counter. So that's already 2 counters on a creature, 2 removable counters on a creature. That makes you one step closer to activating Tayam's great ability. As your creatures die, Rot Shambler gets a +1/+1 counter. Some more other key creatures that put counters on your creatures, or they put counters on themselves, are Athreos, Shroud-Veiled, Luminous Broodmoth, Hungering Hydra, Wall of Roots, Yahenni, Undying Partisan, Mana Gorger Hydra, Rishkar Pima Renegade, Knight of Autumn. And for what I think is the all-star card from the creatures, anyways, would be the Primordial Hydra. Primordial Hydra, you can dispense any amount of mana into it, and it'll just keep growing and growing every upkeep. It'll just double the +1/+1 counters on it. Some other creatures we have are Vizier Seer, Woe Strider, which would be sack outlets, Reclamation Sage, artifact removal, enchantment removal, Sir Conrad the Grim, which is a nice way to ping your opponents because creature cards will be entering and leaving your graveyard, Winding Constrictor, Grateful Apparition, and Evolution Sage for proliferate so we can get more counters and stack them up. We also have Wood Elves, Spring Bloom Druid, both for recurable ramp. With Wood Elves, when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a forest and put it into play untapped. With Spring Bloom, you can sacrifice a land and search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them into play tapped. Plague Crafter and Fiend Hunter for recurable removal. And for more recursion, we have Nethroi Apex of Death and Sun Titan. If you look at the CMC costs of most permanents, they are CMC 3 or less. And for our surprise sub-theme, we have Even Mind Sensor, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and Spirit of the Labyrinth for a stacks. Because notably you're not playing blue, so you just want to keep those combo players in check. So you want to build a little bit of stacks with this. And for our last creature, we'll be using Loaming Shaman. Just in case we almost mill ourselves, Loaming Shaman allows us to select any number of cards from our graveyard and shuffle them into our library. It's a great, wonderful, underrated card. For artifacts, we have Ashnod's Altar, another sack outlet, Altar of Dementia, another sack outlet, and it mills us. Crucible of Worlds, so we can play land cards from our graveyards. Perpetual Timepiece to fill our graveyard, and just in case, if our graveyard is being targeted for exile, we can save it. We also have the Araska Relic, which is a recurable way to draw a card and some life gain. The Uzalith, or the Ozolith, whichever way you pronounce it, just so if there's any counters that we don't use on a creature that dies, we can save it, and so nothing goes to waste. We also have what I believe would be the best artifact for the deck, is the Cauldron of Souls. Cauldron of Souls can be used as a political artifact, giving any creature of your choice persist, or you can abuse it by killing all of your creatures to gain a lot of recurable value. Before any board wipe, you can just activate the Cauldron of Souls, give all your creatures, or creatures of your choice, persist. You can make friends, or you can make enemies with it. For enchantments, we have the typical enchantments you'd see in an Abzan deck: Animate Dead, Necromancy, Pernicious Deed, Aura Shards, Grasp of Fate. We also have Omen of the Hunt for more recurable ramp, Deafening Silence for our stacks sub-theme, and what I think is the best enchantment would be the Unspeakable Symbol. In Commander, your life total is a great, wonderful resource. You start at 40 life. Being able to just pay 3 life to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature would be a great help. For a Planeswalker, we only have one in the deck, and that would be Jiang Yangju. That's the best. I think that's the best way I can pronounce it. Jiang Yangju, Wildcrafter. He has the ability to put +1/+1 counters on creatures you control, and since he's one of the War of the Sparks Planeswalkers, he has a static ability, which would be creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them. You can tap them for mana of any color. So in a way, he ramps us just like Rishkar. Moving on to our non-permanent spells, we run 4 instants in the deck. Cauldron Haze, that allows you to Cauldron of Souls, pretty much. Entomb to tutor a card for our graveyard. Croson Grip for removal. And also Swords of Plowshares for removal. For our sorceries, we have Buried Alive for more graveyard tutor. Final Partings for tutor for our hand and our graveyard. Cultivate and Farseek for ramp. Winds of Abandon for removal. I think it's a really great, lovely card. It's gonna be the closest Cyclonic Rift for white. And we have Black Sun's Zenith for removal and to put counters on things which we can use for our commander's ability. Black Sun's Zenith is a wonderful sorcery for this deck because instead of going into the graveyard, it just gets shuffled back into our library, so there's a possibility that we can reuse it again. For our land base, we have Overgrown Tomb, Temple Garden, Godless Shrine, with Woodland Cemetery, Sunpetal Grove, and Isolated Chapel. Some of our more important lands are Gavany Township, which puts +1/+1 counters on creatures we control, High Market, which is another sack outlet, Karn's Bastion, which allows us to proliferate for 4 mana, and Oran Reef the Basswood, which puts +1/+1 counters on green creatures that just enter the battlefield. Riftstone Portal allows it so our lands can tap for green and white mana if it's in the graveyard, and Scorched Runes. Scorched Runes is an optional card. You can replace it with probably Phyrexian Tower, or another sack outlet land. I chose it because Tayam's activation cost is 3, which I think it's kind of expensive, and Scorched Ruins being able to produce 4 colorless mana by itself really saves a lot of resources. The rest of the land base, I'll just put them up on the screen because they need no explanation. It's your typical basic 3 mana color commander land base. Alright, so that would conclude the deck tech. Thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. I will try my best to answer them. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye. Hey guys, it's Adrian. After I recorded this, I looked into the deck more. And I realized that there could be some, obviously, it's not perfect, but there's better cards that I could have in this. So I added Phyrexian Tower, Oblivion Stone, and a Soul Ring. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys what cards I removed because subconsciously we make our own decisions on what cards we add or remove into decks. It's all based on our playstyle and our playgroup, so I'll leave that up to you guys. So again, bye bye.